Unfortunately, I'm feeling about as well as the Kraken played this game, which is to say, like complete What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Kraken lose 6-2 against the Columbus Blue Jackets at the start of a road trip that was a must-win at least the vast majority of the games, if not all of them, to try to get back in the playoff race. And instead, they come off with one of the most absolutely shameful performances of the season. Which, just to be clear, is not a comment on the Blue Jackets in any way. This is a Blue Jackets team that, while they are a beatable around 500 teams, so it's the type of team that if the Kraken want to get back in a playoff race, they should be able to certainly play a lot better than they did in this game against. It's still a Blue Jackets team that, against all the odds, against everything that has gone on around this team over the last few years, everything that they've had to battle against, a lot of it self-inflicted, but also way too much that hasn't been, with absolutely no expectations coming into this season, they are in a playoff spot, and, well, yeah, the playoff line in the East is quite a bit lower than it is in the West right now. They're still 2 games above NHL 500, while the Kraken now have fallen to 5 games below it. So even in the East, the Kraken would be nowhere near the playoff line at this point in time. So at least this time anyway, my feelings about how the Kraken played in this game, which right now is mostly anger and frustration, have nothing really to do with their opponent, and entirely how the Kraken played. They could have played against the Eastern Conference All-Star team, and I would still feel about the same way of how they played in this game, and the score would probably look a whole lot worse. So then normally this would be exactly the type of game that I would love to, well, I wouldn't really love to, but I would absolutely go all in on this team and angrily rant about how poorly they played in this game and how inexcusable their play was in it, but I don't really think my voice can make it through even half a video like that. As it is a normal video, my voice is only going to make it through this on hopes, prayers, tea, and cough drops. So in order to at least give my voice the best chance I can of making it all the way to the end of this, and at least getting through as many of the points as I'd like to make as I can, I'm going to have to at least try to keep my emotions frustratingly undertoned, kind of the opposite of any anime you've ever seen. Just take my word for it if you haven't seen any, but believe me, while I might not be able to be as amped up as maybe some of you are watching this about how angry we are about how the Kraken played in this game, especially given where they are in the season, believe me, the emotions are there, even if it doesn't seem like they're right at the surface like they sometimes would be after a game like this. Certainly one where I'm not wearing the jersey and never even thought about it. Now, as we already knew coming into the game, because of the Kraken having somewhat consistently and on a number of occasions through the first half of the season dropped the ball, to say the very least, it was already going to be a long shot for them to make the playoffs as they started this road trip. I mean, if you believe Money Puck, then a less than 1% chance starting the road trip. They don't have my favorite model necessarily, although the visualization is pretty good, so I understand why people use it. Either way, the Kraken really needed to string some things together and show a sense of urgency as they went out on the road against some teams that, while they are mostly still higher in the standings than the Kraken, are definitely beatable if they want to make that run happen. And to be honest, as the first period gets started, the Kraken looked like they were going to show that sense of urgency. It's one of the best first 4 or 5 minutes of a first period that we've seen from the Kraken all season long. In fact, I think they spent pretty much the first 2 minutes entirely in the offensive end. Back-to-back fantastic shifts from the Beniers line, and then the new-look Stevenson line as McCann has moved down or switched places with Bjorkstrand. So Bjorkstrand up with Stevenson and Burakovsky, or down depending on how you look at it. Either way, they had a very good first shift of the game, and those two lines put together to do pretty much everything short of scoring. And by 7.5 minutes into the game, the Kraken already had 7 shots on goal, while Columbus had just at that point managed their first. But of course, because we can't have nice things or expect good play to be rewarded, even for everything the Kraken did well through the first half of the first period, eventually it's the Blue Jackets who score first, as the Kraken just leave a guy standing right in front of Grubauer. The shot down the middle with him screened is tipped in front of him, so not only is he screened and can barely see the shot coming, it's also redirected right in front of him. He has absolutely no chance whatsoever. And the Blue Jackets, with that guy completely unchallenged at the top of the crease, are able to get that early lead. Though, at least this time anyway, to the team's credit, it is a Blue Jackets lead that only lasts for all of 10 seconds, as the Kraken win the ensuing faceoff back to, I think it's Alexiak, gets it up to McCann in the neutral zone. McCann along the boards into the offensive end, where a Blue Jacket does get to it first, but Shane Wright is right on top of him. He lifts the stick, takes the puck from him, whips it around, and throws it into open ice where Ellie Tolvanen is waiting. He winds up and fires off the shot, perfectly placed into the top corner to give the Kraken right back and even score on the scoreboard, even though they had done everything right to have the lead at this point. And while that quick response for Tolvanen's 9th of the season was great to see, it isn't something the Kraken are really able to build much momentum off, and that sequence of traded goals kind of evens things out. Eventually the Blue Jackets get a power play, which, at least in their own building, has been a very dangerous power play so far this season. The Kraken do a good job of killing that off, and then they'll get a power play in the final seconds of the first. So all things considered, you're feeling pretty good about where the Kraken are at. Unfortunately, that's about how long it lasts. As the second period gets started, the Kraken don't do much with their power play, get a couple shots on goal, but nothing particularly dangerous. And then the rest of the period happens. And it starts happening pretty quick, as less than 4 minutes in, aka less than 2 minutes after the Kraken finish out that unsuccessful power play, the Blue Jackets are going to retake the lead in a pretty similar way to how they scored the first goal, with a guy standing all alone, unchecked in front of the Kraken net, just standing at the top of the crease, waiting for the puck to get to him. Eventually it does. It has to be said, for the second time already in this game, it's Alexiak who loses his man. That's the guy standing in front of the net. This time, it doesn't come from right down the slot. The shot is just a backhand shovel from along the goal line that gets tipped in past Grubauer. No chance for him. And while you would definitely like to see Alexiak a little bit more on top of this and not letting a guy just stand unchallenged at the top of the crease, it has to be said that Chandler Stevenson also does a pretty poor job of defending this. For a guy that was brought in to basically be an upgrade to Wemberg, well, offensively, I might be able to give you that. Defensively, he has been straight up one of the worst, statistically speaking, forwards in the NHL to this point in the season. And I don't mean like bottom 10%, I mean like bottom 1 to 2% defensive forward, and it's kind of on display here as he just sort of follows Van Riemsdyk and just lets him do whatever he wants with the puck. I mean, he's kind of keeping him to the outside and I suppose taking away any passing lanes other than the lane to the net, not allowing him to pass it back out, instead of just challenging him, putting a body on a body and making it impossible just to get a pass off in the first place. So because Stevenson's basically just watching Van Riemsdyk skate around, he's able to shovel that backhand pass to the wide open guy in front of the net through Alexiak. Again, no chance for Grubauer. It's 2-1 Blue Jackets. Now I suppose a couple minutes later, the Kraken do almost tie the game up again. A nice feed from Tolvanen finds McCann in front of the net, but a fantastic toe save by Merzlikins keeps that one out. And then the back half of the third is a complete unmitigated disaster for the Kraken defensively. I mean, for one thing, it probably already should have been 3-1 at this point, with Grubauer having made at least one, if not two, pretty fantastic saves of his own right after the Kraken gave up the second goal. But in the back half of the second, it just proves to be too much for even him. He really has no chance on goals 2 and 3, or 3 and 4, 2 and 3 of the second period. First of which comes from a wide open Zach Werenski. On the far side, a cross seam pass gets through all 5 Kraken players as they're playing 5-on-3, but still somehow the Blue Jackets are able to play pass with the puck along the boards without any challenge from any one of the 5 guys. Again, 5-on-3 on that side of the ice, which is a problem because that leaves 2 guys, but specifically 1 forward on the far side, completely open. So as long as the Kraken aren't even blocking off passing lanes, which they don't do effectively, as soon as that pass gets through, it's going to be in the back of the net. Sure enough, all Grubauer can do is try to lunge across and hope for the best. He isn't able to get lucky with where the puck is placed. It's placed pretty well. It's 3-1 Blue Jackets. Again, a play where the Kraken defensively are doing some weird combination of all trying to be the guy that's helping, but also expecting somebody else to do the part that is actually useful. I don't know if that made any sense, but basically what I'm trying to say is when they're playing as poorly as they did defensively, especially in the second period in this game, they have these moments where it seems like they're simultaneously all trying to be, or all feel personally responsible for the guy with the puck and making sure he doesn't do anything with it, which obviously not all 5 of them are responsible for the one guy with the puck. That would leave everybody else open, like it does on this play. I mean, specifically Andrei Burakovsky here is definitely not responsible for the opposite side winger who is on the opposite side of the ice with the puck along the boards. He should probably be, over with the other winger standing in completely wide open ice on the far side, who eventually is going to get this pass. But then not only are they all huddled around the one guy feeling like they're trying to be the hero to prevent him from doing something, but then once they're there, it's like none of them want to take that last step and actually be the guy that does something about it. It's like they're 5 ambulances arriving at a 4-way stop, or I guess 4 ambulances arriving at a 4-way stop, and then they all just do the you go, no you go, no you go. They all come there to do something, and then all of them wait for one of the other guys to be the guy that does something about it. It's a worst of both worlds situation for them, and it results in 3 guys playing pass around with the puck until eventually they realize that Werenski's been completely forgotten about on the far side. Never mind wherever the heck the 5th guy is in this instance. He's somewhere also completely wide open, but he's unnecessary because they just have to get it across to Werenski. Grubauer has no chance, and like I said, 3-1. But it's okay, right? After all, the Kraken, at least lately anyway, have had a bit of a penchant for coming back from multiple goal deficits, even in third periods alone. Heck, they had that one game where they came back into one from down 4-1. Which apparently is a challenge because not too much longer, it's going to be 4-1 in this game too, as the Kraken once again defensively have a whoopsie-daisy and let a guy get a little bit too far past them, and the guy circling around behind the net with the puck is able to fling it from one side along the goal line, out to the far side, past the guy in front of the net who at least this time does have somebody on him. The puck still gets through them, out to the guy who does technically have Cartier in his back pocket, but a little bit too far behind, and that little bit makes all the difference as the puck gets to Matinchuk, I think is how you pronounce it. It's his first NHL goal as he gets it flung right back at the net. Again, not much of a chance for Grubauer. He dives back to the far post and almost gets the paddle of his stick on it, but it goes right into the corner to make it 4-1 Blue Jackets. Again, though, the Kraken have come back from 4-1 already this season, and they did that in less than 5 minutes at the end of a third period. So just imagine what they could do with a whole 20 minutes of a third period and still a couple minutes left in this one. And apparently they felt like that was a challenge, so a couple minutes later, it's 5-1. And admittedly, this one is a little bit more just Grubauer needs to make a save. It's a very nice shot from Kent Johnson as he skates in and does have some people in front of him. It's a pretty contested shot from fairly well out that he just kind of curls up and fires off the shot. A nice little wrister that just finds the perfect little spot past the not quite outstretched pad of Grubauer on the far side. Gets in past him, and this is the point where, I mean, the Kraken had already called a timeout at 4-1, so this goal goes in. Grubauer comes out, and while this one is one that he probably should have saved, the rest definitely weren't his fault, and the fact that he gets pulled also was a bit more of a comment on how the team had just turned him into the victim, as he had been making saves for them, giving them chances to win games, maybe not this one necessarily, but he had kept them in game after game over this last stretch, and the team is just falling apart in front of him. So to send a message to the team, Bylsma decides to pull a goaltender for the first time this season, and that means that Joey Decord, fresh off the IR, told you he'd be back soon, goes into the net, and right away has to make a pretty nice save of his own, a cross-seam pass, and it's a shot up high that he has to reach up to get his blocker to. The blocker arm, by the way, that is the reason he was on IR, so the Kraken testing him immediately with some more inept defense. Fortunately, Decord is able to keep that one out, and the Kraken mercifully get to the end of the second period, which has been a period that they just don't seem to know how to play hockey in so far over these last couple of weeks. So then we go to the third period, which at this point seems somewhat meaningless the way the Kraken played in the second. And the third period is pretty much all Kraken. They play another fantastic period, just like they played really well in that first. Just they didn't show up for the second, and it turns out that Columbus is very good at scoring against teams that don't show up. They are third in 5-on-5 scoring so far this season, having an absolutely incredible unexpected season. It turns out they're the team this year that's just come out of nowhere to make a run and have an offense that nobody expected, kind of like the Canucks last year, although at least there they have a couple of star to superstar type players to work with, or the Kraken 2 years ago when they made that run to the playoffs were the third or fourth highest scoring team, highest scoring at 5-on-5, but third or fourth highest scoring team in the NHL period that season. So it's something, there's a team or two every year that have a run like this. The Blue Jackets are that. But before we get too carried away or anybody tries to use that as an excuse in any way for what happens to the Kraken in that second period, it was pretty much all self-inflicted. The Kraken would have given up those goals to just about any team in the NHL. Not to mention the fact that in this game, the Blue Jackets were missing two of their best and highest scoring players. So yeah, there's absolutely no excuse, especially when you have one guy getting his first NHL goal, another getting his second NHL goal in just his second NHL game, I believe. So it's not like the Blue Jackets were throwing an all-star team out there. The Kraken just couldn't handle it. and let 4 goals in a period, 3 of them in just a few minutes there in the back half of the second. So when the Kraken play a good third period, while it's nice to see, and maybe it's, you try and put that silver lining on it of it's something to build off going forward. We've said that many times before when the Kraken play a crappy second and then make up for it a bit with a good third period. They do score one more time. The one guy that decided to show up to this game, and Ellie Tolvanen, gets another one-time shot perfectly placed off, this time from a pass from Stevenson. So in spite of some defensive lapses, Stevenson still is producing offensively, and now 4-game point streak, I think, for him. I don't know what the point streak against him is, but either way, he's producing offensively, which is more than we can say for some other guys on the team. Still, it ends up being far too little too late. The Kraken get 2 power plays that late in the game. If they score on both of them, then it suddenly becomes a 1-goal game and maybe another miracle happens, but it never does. They don't score on either of those. Eventually the empty net is hit, and that's how we get to 6-2. So one more time in the end with this game, while sure the Kraken played pretty well for 40 minutes of it, the first 20 and the last 20, the middle 20 were such a complete embarrassment, shambolic in every sense of the word, however many different adjectives you want to use. That second period was so bad that by the end of it, I think McCann said it best when he was asked if there was any good things to take from this game, and his answer was just a flat no. So all that's really left then is for some big changes to happen, and they need to happen fast. Big changes are going to happen one way or another. It's just whether or not they are able to happen now on the ice in any kind of time to make any kind of difference, or if they end up happening at the end of the season off the ice. Heck, if things keep going the way that they have been, those big changes off the ice might be coming before the end of the season. But anyway, as far as this game is concerned, while I do feel like there's still a lot more that could be said and certainly some more emotions that could be expressed, who knows, maybe we'll get a chance to say some of those things once my voice is feeling a little bit better if things continue here in the upcoming back-to-back on this weekend. But for now, for the sake of my voice, I'm gonna close it off there. As far as Kraken 3 stars, well, Patreon agreed. I don't think we really can do stars in this game after a performance like that one. I suppose if you wanted to give one, Tolvanen, I suppose, is probably deserving of a star, although I think he would be perfectly happy in agreeing to have no stars in this game. The 2 goals, though, and at least he seems the one guy that is firing that puck off with some frustration behind it, putting those 2 shots blisteringly into the back of the net like we saw him do in that first season with the team. So I don't know what we have to do to get that energy and just put it in each of the other guys and get them to start doing that a little bit more. Honestly, though, the problems are more at the other end of the ice, and that is something that it seems is a much bigger problem than just 1 or 2 guys getting something figured out. I mean, heck, maybe even give Grubauer a star in this game just for having to be that guy that was the victim of the Kraken defense throughout this entire game, and he's the one that ends up suffering on the stat sheet. I mean, sure, the rest of them get minuses in the plus-minus category, but no one really ever looks at those. It's Grubauer whose save percentage looks terrible, even though he really never had a chance on 4 of the 5 goals that get past him. Which again, of course, is his reward for having played heroically in these last few games, in spite of some more horrendous defense from the Kraken in spots of those games as well. Not quite as bad and quite as consistent as the second period of this game, but it's been an adventure, to say the least, in the Kraken end of the ice for most of this season. With that, though, I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comment section below, how we're feeling about what changes could be made, whether that's on the ice, off the ice. Yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments. Feel free to just vent about this game in general if you spent 2.5 of your hours watching it, and then I suppose especially if you spent another 20 or so minutes watching this video afterwards. Thank you very much if that is you and you've made it to this point. Until next time, though, where hopefully things will get better, but it's hard to say that optimism is high. Stay safe out there. Be good to each other. God bless, and go Kraken.